On a warm summer afternoon in 2012, at Huntington Beach in California, a young woman named Clara, whose name has been changed, was strolling along the shore. Clara loved the ocean and often spent time walking here to relax after stressful hours at work. The beach at this hour was quite deserted, with only a few people fishing or walking around. The sunlight had begun to soften, casting a golden hue over the sky and the sea. The sound of waves gently lapping against the sand created a soothing rhythm. Clara breathed in the fresh air, feeling her soul at peace, as she walked to a slightly more secluded part of the beach, where there were many rocks and wild bushes growing along the shore. Clara suddenly saw something strange in the distance. Right at the water's edge, it was a dark object, not looking like a rock or driftwood. Curiosity rising, Clara decided to walk closer to see what it was. She walked on the wet sand, trying not to get her feet wet. As she got closer, Clara squinted, looking carefully. The object was round, slightly raised above the water's surface. It seemed to be a head. Clara felt a shiver run down her spine. She couldn't believe her eyes. It was truly a human head, floating on the water. She froze, staring in horror at the head. Its face was submerged in the water, so Clara couldn't see it clearly. But she could see matted black hair and pale white skin. Clara felt nauseous. She thought maybe this was a murder case. Someone had been killed and thrown into the sea. She tried to take out her phone to call the police, but her hands were shaking too much. Just then, something terrifying happened. The head on the water suddenly bounced up, as if an invisible string was pulling it. Clara screamed in horror. She stared at the head hovering in the air. Its face was still turned down into the water, but she could see the back of the head more clearly, with its matted hair and pale skin. Then, the head suddenly moved erratically, as if dancing in the air. It bounced up and down randomly, without any pattern. Clara stood there like a statue, unable to believe what she was witnessing. It wasn't a corpse. It was something else, something supernatural and terrifying. The dancing head continued to move in the air for a while, then abruptly fell back into the water with a small splash. It sank below the surface and disappeared. Clara stood there alone on the deserted beach, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know what had just happened, but she knew she had witnessed something completely abnormal. She turned around and ran frantically towards the more populated area, not daring to look back. The twilight sun suddenly felt cold and frightening. After running away from the beach, Clara felt completely panicked. She didn't dare talk to anyone about what she had seen, afraid that others would think she was crazy. She went home, locked the door carefully, and tried to forget the horrifying scene. However, the image of the dancing head haunted Clara's mind. She couldn't sleep at all. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the pale white head with matted black hair. In the following days, Clara tried to stay away from the beach. She didn't want to go back there again. But the haunting memory of the dancing head did not fade. A few days later, as Clara was walking on the road near the beach in the morning, she suddenly saw something in the distance, right at the water's edge. It was that head again. It was still floating on the water, in a similar position to the last time. Clara froze, her heart pounding. She couldn't believe it had appeared again. This time, Clara wasn't as panicked as before. She felt a strange curiosity mixed with fear. She wanted to know why that head kept appearing and what it was. She stood there for a while, observing the head. It was still facing down into the water, not moving. After a moment, Clara decided not to get closer. She knew it wasn't safe. She turned around and quickly left the area. However, from that day on, Clara started seeing the dancing head many more times. Sometimes, she saw it when walking near the beach in the afternoon. Sometimes, she saw it when sitting on the sand reading a book. And sometimes, late at night, she saw it hovering above the water when standing at her window looking out at the sea. Each time she saw it, the head would dance strangely in the air before sinking into the water and disappearing. The sight was both eerie and mysterious. Clara felt like her life was being haunted by the dancing head. She didn't know what it was, but it kept appearing and scaring her. She tried talking to friends and family about what she had seen, but no one believed her. They thought she was hallucinating or overly stressed. This made Clara feel lonely and helpless. She started searching for information online about strange phenomena happening at Huntington Beach or other coastal areas. She read many stories about mysterious disappearances, unexplained drownings, and reports of strange creatures seen near the coast. However, Clara couldn't find any story similar to what she had witnessed. Her dancing head was something completely unique and terrifying. Clara knew she couldn't live in this fear and obsession forever. She needed to find out the truth about the dancing head. Determined to find the truth, Clara began to investigate the history of the Huntington Beach area more deeply. Especially murders, suicides, or mysterious disappearances that occurred near the coast. She believed that the dancing head was related to some tragic death. Clara went to the local library, read old newspapers, and searched for information in public archives. She learned that in the past, Huntington Beach had witnessed many tragedies. She read stories about people who had drowned in storms, suicides from the pier, and unsolved murders that occurred near the coast. However, Clara didn't find any story related to the finding of a severed head. That confused Clara. If the dancing head was the spirit of someone who had died, then why did it appear in such a bizarre form? Clara also researched legends and folklore related to Huntington Beach. Some elderly people in the area told strange stories about creatures living in the deep sea or spirits lingering on the coast. However, none of the stories were similar to her dancing head. The more she investigated, the more Clara felt stuck. She couldn't find any explanation for what she had witnessed. Nevertheless, Clara did not give up. She continued to observe the dancing head. Every time she saw it, she would record the time, location, and its behavior. Clara noticed that the dancing head often appeared in the same area on the beach, near where she first saw it. That area had many rocks and wild bushes, and it was quite secluded. Clara also noticed that the dancing head often appeared at dawn or dusk, the transition periods between day and night. She felt some kind of connection between the dancing head and that particular area on the beach. She thought maybe something had happened there, something horrifying that had caused that head to be trapped in this world. Clara decided to investigate the history of that area more closely. She searched on old maps and in historical documents. She discovered that in the 1950s, there used to be a small house in that area. However, that house was destroyed in a big storm. Clara felt a sense of unease. Could the dancing head be related to that old house? Clara continued to investigate the old house in the secluded beach area. She learned that the house belonged to a small family, and they had lived there for several years before it was destroyed in the storm. However, Clara couldn't find any information about the people who had lived in that house. It seemed they had disappeared after the storm. Clara felt that something was wrong. Why was there no information about those people? Could they have died in the storm? Clara decided to go to the area of the old house to search for clues. Although she was scared, curiosity and the desire to solve the mystery urged her on. One afternoon, Clara went to the area of the old house. Only the stone foundation and a few pieces of rotten wood remained. The area was quite deserted, with only the sound of waves and the wind blowing. Clara walked around the old foundation, trying to find any remaining traces. She felt a strange coldness enveloping this area, even though it was sunny. Just then, Clara suddenly saw something sparkling under a large rock near the foundation. She bent down to check and was horrified to see an old metal box. The box was rusty and dented, but Clara could still open it. Inside the box, she found a few old photographs that had yellowed and decayed. The photos showed a small family, a man, a woman, and a little girl. They looked very happy in the pictures. Clara felt a deep sadness. These were probably the people who had lived in this old house. She continued searching in the box and found another strange object. It was an old rope, abruptly cut. The rope had reddish-brown stains on it, looking like dried blood. Clara shivered. Why was there a rope with dried blood stains in this family's box? She remembered the dancing head she had seen. Could this rope be related to someone's death in this family? Clara felt intense unease. She knew she was getting closer to the truth about the dancing head. Just then, Clara suddenly heard the waves crashing unusually hard against the shore. She looked out at the sea and was horrified to see the dancing head hovering above the water. Not far from the shore. This time, the head wasn't facing down into the water anymore. Its face was turned towards Clara. Clara screamed in horror as she clearly saw the face of the head. It was the face of the woman in the old photographs. Her face was pale and contorted with pain, her eyes wide open, staring at Clara with utter terror. And on her neck, there were dark red marks, as if she had been strangled with a rope. Jessica screamed in horror as she saw the terrifying face of the woman in the dancing head. Her face was distorted with pain, her eyes wide open, staring at Clara with utter terror. And on her neck, the dark red marks made the scene even more gruesome. Clara knew this was the spirit of the deceased woman. She was trying to tell her about her death. And the rope in the box was the murder weapon. The dancing head began to move towards Clara, still bouncing erratically in the air, but this time appearing more aggressive. The waves crashing against the shore grew stronger and stronger, as if wanting to swallow Clara. Clara backed away, her heart pounding in her chest. She wanted to run, but her legs seemed frozen in place. As the dancing head got closer, Clara could hear a very faint moan emanating from it. The moan sounded like choked sobbing, full of pain and despair. Then, the moan suddenly turned into a heart-wrenching scream, like the final scream of someone being murdered. The scream echoed across the deserted beach, sending shivers down Clara's spine. The dancing head stopped a few meters away from Clara. It hovered in the air, its black, hollow eyes staring intently at her. Clara felt as if the woman's spirit was trying to convey a message to her. Clara tried to stay calm, took a deep breath, and said, Were you murdered? Who did this?" The dancing head slowly bowed down, as if nodding. Then, it suddenly turned around, facing the sea. Clara looked in the direction the head turned and was horrified to see a blurry figure standing on the water, not far from the shore. It was the figure of a man, wearing dark clothes. The man's figure stood silently, staring at the shore. Although his face wasn't visible, Clara could sense a dark and terrifying aura emanating from him. Clara knew this was the spirit of the person who had murdered the woman. He was still lingering here, guarding his secret. The dancing head slowly moved towards the man's figure, as if wanting to confront him. Clara stood there, witnessing the confrontation between the victim's spirit and the murderer's spirit. She felt a mixture of fear and indignation. The ghost of the woman lunged towards the figure of the man on the water with an angry screech. The figure of the man also seemed to sense the attack. He recoiled backward. The water around the two spirits became violently agitated. Large waves rose, crashing against each other, creating terrifying sounds. The two spirits struggled on the water, creating cold drafts and strange noises. Clara stood on the shore, watching in horror as the supernatural battle unfolded. She couldn't see clearly what was happening, but she could feel the woman's fury and pain, along with the man's cruelty and despair. The confrontation happened very quickly. Finally, the ghost of the woman seemed to gain the upper hand. The figure of the man groaned in pain, and his body began to disintegrate into black dust. In an instant, the figure of the man completely vanished, dissolving into the cold water. The ghost of the woman also stopped, hovering above the water. Jessica looked at the ghost of the woman. Her face was no longer contorted with pain, but had become more peaceful. Her deep, hollow black eyes still looked at Clara, but without horror or anger. Instead, there was gratitude and serenity. The ghost of the woman nodded slightly at Clara, a sad but grateful smile appearing on her lips. Then, she slowly bent down, touched the water, and dissolved into it. The water became calm again. Waves gently lapped against the sand as if nothing had happened. Clara stood there alone on the beach, trembling all over. She knew she had just witnessed something extraordinary. She had helped the woman's spirit find justice and peace. She believed that the woman had been murdered by that man, and her spirit had been trapped here, seeking revenge or someone to help her reveal the truth. And that bizarre dancing head was how her spirit manifested her suffering and the haunting memory of her death. Clara felt a strange sense of relief. The haunting memory of the dancing head had disappeared. She knew she wouldn't see it anymore. She turned around and walked home, her mind full of thoughts. She knew her life had changed after what she had witnessed. After witnessing what she had, Clara decided to find out more about the deaths of the woman and the man. She believed they had died at the same time in some tragedy. Clara searched through old newspaper archives, especially articles related to the big storm that occurred in the 1950s which destroyed the old house. She hoped to find information about the people who had lived in that house. She discovered an old article that told the story of a family who died in the storm. It was the family of Mr. and Mrs. Miller. They had a young daughter named Emily, and their daughter had drowned in the storm. However, the article didn't mention the woman Clara had seen in the photograph. Clara was confused. Who was the woman in the photograph? Was she related to the Miller family? She continued to investigate and discovered a noteworthy detail. Before the storm, Mr. and Mrs. Miller had hired a young woman named Anna to help with housework. Anna was a beautiful and kind woman. Clara suddenly remembered the face of the woman in the photograph. It was Anna. Clara felt uneasy. Was Anna involved in the deaths of the Miller family? Or was she also a victim? Clara searched for information about Anna after the storm, but found nothing. It seemed Anna had also disappeared with the house. Clara believed that Anna's death was related to the Miller family and the storm, but she didn't know what the connection was. She returned to the area of the old house and checked the metal box again. This time, she examined the old photographs more closely. She noticed that in a few photos, Anna was standing next to a man. It was Mr. Miller. And in one photo, Mr. Miller was looking at Anna with a strange gaze. Not like the gaze of a normal homeowner. Clara shivered. Could there have been an improper relationship between Anna and Mr. Miller? She remembered the marks on Anna's neck in the dancing head. It seemed she had been strangled. A terrifying thought suddenly flashed through Clara's mind. Could Mr. Miller have murdered Anna and hidden her body? And had the storm destroyed the house and covered up his crime? And perhaps Anna's spirit had been trapped here, seeking the truth about her death. After discovering the horrifying truth about Anna's death, Clara felt a strange sense of relief. She knew she had solved the mystery of the dancing head. Clara decided to do something to help Anna's spirit find complete peace. She believed that Anna wanted the truth about her death to be revealed. Clara contacted the local police department and told them her entire story, including seeing the dancing head, finding the metal box with the photographs and rope, and her conclusions about Anna's death. At first, the police were skeptical of Clara's story. They thought she was hallucinating or influenced by rumors. However, after Clara provided the physical evidence, the box, the photos, and the rope, the police decided to conduct a deeper investigation. They investigated the history of the Miller family and the unsolved murder case that occurred in the 1950s. They also inquired about the relationship between Mr. Miller and Anna. Thanks to the clues Clara provided, the police found new evidence in old records, confirming that Mr. Miller was a violent man with a criminal record related to assault cases. Although there was no direct evidence proving Mr. Miller had murdered Anna, the circumstantial evidence and Clara's story were enough for the police to conclude that Anna's death was a murder committed by Mr. Miller. Perhaps he had murdered Anna due to their improper relationship or for some other reason. And then he and his family died in the storm, covering up his crime. The truth about Anna's death was revealed after many years of being buried. Clara returned to Huntington Beach, to the area of the old house. She stood there, looking out at the calm sea. She knew that Anna's spirit had been freed. Clara spoke softly into the air. "Anna, are you here? The truth about your death has been revealed. Mr. Miller has been exposed. Please rest in peace." In a moment, a gentle breeze blew through, carrying the scent of the sea salt and a feeling of peace. Clara knew that Anna had heard her words. From then on, Clara no longer saw the dancing head. The haunting had completely disappeared. She believed that Anna had found peace beneath the deep sea. Clara still often visited Huntington Beach, but now she felt a special connection to this place. It was where she had solved a mystery and helped an unfortunate spirit find rest. Clara's story is a reminder that sometimes, the darkest secrets are hidden in the places we least expect. And sometimes, all it takes is one person brave enough to listen and seek the truth. And they can help unfortunate spirits find justice and peace. If you enjoyed these true horror stories, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on the channel to follow our latest videos. We will bring you more terrifying and haunting stories. Thank you for listening.